when the moon hits your eye like...
When I was 12 years old, my parents did what any rational people in their mid-40s with 2 adolescent kids would do. They opened an Italian restaurant. They worked tirelessly through a year of sleepless nights and draining days and managed to open an adorable bistro that became wildly successful. It was located in the heart of Lakewood, a historic, well-to-do neighborhood in Old East Dallas. Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra crooned into the romantic, dimly lit dining room. Murals of Italian villas covered the walls, and my mom lined the ledges with wicker Chianti bottles. If she was feeling generous, she would let the guests finish them first. I hosted on weekend nights, gracelessly shuffling through oversized menus and failing miserably at playful banter. The confident, superior demeanor of our Lakewood customers intimidated me. Though I was superbly awkward around them, I had one guilty little pleasure. I could alter the course of their entire lives, depending on where I sat them in our restaurant. We had 6 very cozy booths that people absolutely coveted, as though little cherubs gently fed them while they were seated there. They demanded, begged, pleaded to sit in one. My favorite sentence quickly became, "I'm so sorry, we just don't have any available." I would smile mischievously, placing their menus on a tiny little two-top right outside the kitchen door. My other time was spent doing side work for the waiters. I cut lemons, bussed tables, polished wine glasses, rolled silverware, etc., etc. The constant hustle of a restaurant was exciting to me at first, but eventually I grew tired of doing everyone's grunt work for 0% of their tips. One Friday night, I begged my parents to let me work in the kitchen. I was 14, so naturally I was ready to jump right into a room full of sweat and testosterone. I started in the pizza station with my dad. He stretched the dough and I spooned the sauce. Our area looked directly at the sauté line, generally the pulsing heart of any kitchen. I was fascinated at the never-ending orders coming in and the lightning-quick speed needed to execute them. It was controlled chaos and it was incredible to watch. At the time, our head sauté cook was a man from Honduras named Caesar. He was every bit of the narcissistic, self-important chef everyone in this business has worked with. He was physically incapable of making a mistake. The waiters were idiotas y pendejos. The expo was a pinche cabrón. Customers were estúpidos gringos. As a teenage girl, he should have intimidated me, but I could only laugh as I thought, this guy is a total man-child. My mom had recently hired a cook named Steve. He was young, white, and gay, and by the night of my back-of-house debut, there was an obvious tension between him and the rest of the kitchen. He was inexperienced and clearly didn't belong there. The rest of the cooks knew this and did not make it easy for him. That Friday was an insanely busy dinner rush, the kind where you blink and an hour has passed by. But it was a different kind of chaos than the front. Most people will never experience the multiple personalities of a restaurant. In the dining room, loud music plays, people laugh, corks pop, glasses clink, waiters make a mad dash for extra lemons or another glass of Chardonnay. Even though it's mobbed full of people, it's generally a lively, fun atmosphere. The second you push through that swinging kitchen door, though, it's like descending into Dante's circles of hell. That same waiter who just effortlessly opened your bottle of Valpolicella while chuckling at your jokes turns into a raging, fire-breathing Medusa. I need 14 salads yesterday. Who took my chicken parm? I just got triple sat for the 3rd effing time. Who threw that dough at me? Add to that cooks who are in overdrive and shit gets real in the back of house. With no customers watching, the staff cussed like drunken sailors and almost nothing was off limits. I thought to myself, this is where I belong. That night, as I watched, spellbound, from my corner of the kitchen, Steve and Caesar were barreling through their tickets. Pans flew into the sink, shrimp sizzled in garlic butter, and giant pasta bowls crowded the window at all times, waiting to be served. Steve struggled to keep up with Caesar, but was managing. As he had grown more comfortable at our place, he had been getting flirtier with the male staff, but the cooks weren't having any part of it. That night, in the middle of absolute mayhem, Steve ignited the Honduran powder keg. Head down and focused. I was halfway through topping a pie when the now familiar clatter of utensils meeting the ground interrupted me. I looked up and saw Steve and Caesar standing about an inch apart, fist clenched, frothing at the mouth. Steve had made the mistake of touching Caesar inappropriately. While diners casually twirled linguine, sipped cocktails, and paid tabs, time stood still in the kitchen. No entrees were fired, no salads made, no dishes washed. I froze myself against the proof box, my eyes as wide as those pasta bowls, as these two men struggled to fight in a space the size of a pantry. They grappled awkwardly, knocking over pans and sending scalding marinara sauce all over the pizza station. I knew I should get out of there, but I couldn't miss the action. Steve was clearly losing, so, covered in flour and Alfredo, he reached for the closest weapon, which happened to be a 10-inch chef knife. He held it limply, Norman Bates style, in a downward direction that says, "I have no idea how to use this thing." Caesar was only able to procure some cheap metal tongs, which he wielded in a way that said, "I have killed with less than this." Even though his weapon of choice had been grabbing meatballs seconds earlier, he looked like a man out for blood. My fascination turned to fear as my dad stuffed himself between them, narrowly avoiding being stabbed and tonged. He just proved to be a mild irritation to the two, who launched their utensils at each other right around him. Steve's knife soared haphazardly like a poorly made paper airplane. Ladles and spoons scattered everywhere, and a china cap almost took out Ernesto, our salad guy. We all took cover. As I approached the ground, I heard a boomerang-like whir and looked up to see a set of razor-sharp tongs hurling towards me at 90 miles an hour. They bounced off the floor in Matrix-style slow motion and landed mere inches from my body. It was this first and unexpected brush with my untimely demise that finally snapped me to attention. I pushed through that swinging door, out of Thunderdome, and into the F. Scott Fitzgerald party roaring in the dining room. I apprised my mom of the devastating news that tongs had almost killed her only daughter. By the time we returned to the kitchen, my dad and the crew had managed to separate the two. Steve threatened a lawsuit as he was thrown out, while Caesar wondered aloud, "¿Dónde están mis pinche tongs?" I lived through tong wars, learning what it meant to be in the weeds as we struggled to recover dinner service. I've been a restaurant general manager for well over a decade now. That night taught me how to multitask and soldier through a busy shift, skills I use daily while orchestrating the many moving parts of a restaurant. But by far, the most important thing I learned in that kitchen was how to avoid flying objects.